She said 3 simple words, "I'm a virgin," and before he even touched her, he broke not because of what she was, but because of what he wasn't. Vulnerability is one of the most fragile forms of human expression. It is the silent language of the heart, a language that does not shout, does not demand, does not negotiate. It simply reveals. And when someone chooses to reveal a part of themselves that is deeply personal, deeply guarded, or emotionally significant, they are doing something far greater than speaking words. They are offering trust. When she said, "I'm a virgin," those words did not come from a place of explanation. They came from a place of courage. Her statement was not about her status, but about her truth, her boundary, and the emotional weight she carried. Vulnerability like that is never about the information itself. It is about the fear behind it. The fear of being judged, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of losing someone because of honesty, the fear that her truth might change the way he sees her, the fear that her transparency might not be met with the same level of respect. To be vulnerable is to strip away the protective layers we build around our hearts. It is to silence the voices inside us that say, "Hide this, don't admit this, they might leave, they might laugh, or worse, they might use this against you." Vulnerability demands that we walk into emotional exposure without armor, without a shield, and without the guarantee that the person standing in front of us will handle us with care. Trust is the foundation on which vulnerability stands. Without trust, vulnerability becomes a risk, a gamble of emotional safety. But with trust, it becomes a bridge, a connection, an invitation to deeper understanding. When she shared her truth, she wasn't showcasing innocence. She was expressing faith. Faith in him, faith that he would not mock her, pressure her, or manipulate her. Faith that he would respond with the gentleness such honesty requires. For a woman or anyone to reveal something intimate about themselves, especially something tied to societal expectations, personal beliefs, or emotional history, it is a moment of exposure. A moment when the heart steps forward before the mind can calculate. A moment where you silently hope that the person listening will not misuse what you have just placed in their hands. And for him, that moment became a mirror. Her vulnerability reflected back to him the responsibility he held. He realized that trust is not a gift to be taken lightly. When someone trusts you with their truth, they are handing you something fragile, something that must be handled with care, patience, and integrity. People think vulnerability is about an emotional reveal. In reality, it is about emotional risk. It is the risk of being rejected, the risk of not being enough, the risk of being seen too deeply and not accepted equally. Her confession wasn't about her virginity, but about the emotional weight behind it. Perhaps she feared being compared. Perhaps she feared being pressured. Perhaps she feared losing respect. Or perhaps she simply believed that honesty was the only real foundation for trust. Whatever her reason, her decision to speak those words signified that she valued the relationship enough to be transparent, even if that transparency made her feel uncomfortable or exposed. And this is why vulnerability requires immense courage. It asks you to trust that the person receiving your truth will not weaponize it. It asks you to believe that they will not run away, not belittle you, not change their intentions. Vulnerability is the rawest form of human honesty, and honesty is always a risk. In relationships, vulnerability becomes the thread that connects two hearts. It deepens conversations. It builds emotional intimacy. It allows two people to understand each other beyond superficial layers. But vulnerability can only thrive where trust exists. Without trust, it turns into fear. Without trust, it becomes a gamble. Without trust, it breaks the person who offered it. When she revealed her truth, she was not simply informing him, she was trusting him. Trusting him to respond with maturity, trusting him to respect her boundaries, trusting him to value her emotional safety more than physical desire, trusting him to hold her truth gently, not tightly, trusting him not to walk away, but to walk carefully. Because vulnerability is not about weakness, it is about strength. It takes strength to reveal what could be judged. It takes strength to admit what could be misunderstood. It takes strength to expose a truth that might change how someone sees you. And it takes even more strength to trust someone with that truth. Her vulnerability was a gift, a delicate offering of trust. It was a moment that required emotional maturity from him, because when someone exposes their heart to you, they are not asking you to prove who they are asking you to prove who you are. And in that moment, the true test was never about her truth. The test was about him, his character, his capacity to respect the emotional space she opened, and his willingness to honor the trust she placed in his hands. Respect is one of the most misunderstood elements in relationships. We often talk about love, passion, attraction, chemistry, but rarely do we talk about respect, even though it is the force that holds everything else together. Desire can make people move fast, but respect teaches them when to slow down. Desire can ignite feelings, but respect gives those feelings meaning. Desire is instinctive, but respect is intentional. When she said, "I'm a virgin," many people would assume the conversation was about physical boundaries. But the truth is deeper. She was not simply referring to a physical state, she was revealing a part of her identity that held emotional, cultural, and personal weight. And in that moment, what she needed from him was not desire, not reassurance, not persuasion, but respect. Respect means understanding that the other person's feelings, values, comfort level, and boundaries matter as much as your own, sometimes even more. It means recognizing that intimacy is not something you take. It's something you earn. It's something you build slowly, carefully, and consciously. It means knowing that your attraction does not give you permission, and your intentions do not override their comfort. The moment she shared her truth, she placed her boundaries in his hands. And for any man or any person, that becomes a moment of responsibility, because desire may push you to move closer, but respect demands you step with caution. It demands patience. It demands restraint. It demands that you prioritize the other person's emotional well-being above your own impulses. Many confuse desire with love. They think wanting someone intensely means they care deeply, but desire alone is selfish. Desire wants to feel satisfied. Desire seeks fulfillment. Desire focuses on what I want, what I feel, what I crave. Respect, on the other hand, focuses on what they need, what they feel, what they are ready for. Respect chooses understanding over urgency. Respect walks slowly where desire runs. When he heard her words, he felt something break inside him, not lust, not frustration, but realization. He recognized that if he moved forward out of desire alone, he would be prioritizing himself. But if he stepped back with care, he would be prioritizing her. And that is what respect truly looks like, choosing emotional responsibility over physical temptation. Respect is not just about saying, "I won't touch you." It is about understanding why. It is about acknowledging that intimacy is not only physical, it is emotional, psychological, and spiritual. For some, it carries memories. For some, it carries trauma. For some, it carries pride or insecurity. For her, it carried vulnerability, and respect meant honoring that. There is a silent nobility in choosing to protect someone's comfort more than satisfying your own craving. In a world where people rush into physical intimacy without considering emotional readiness, stepping back becomes an act of strength, not weakness. Respect is not passive, it is active. It is not about denying desire, it is about directing it. It is about controlling your impulses because the other person's heart matters more than your heat. He realized that touching her body without being ready to hold her heart would be a form of emotional imbalance. She was offering honesty, vulnerability, transparency, and in return, she needed sensitivity. He understood that a moment of patience can protect someone from years of regret. He understood that a truth was not a barrier, it was a boundary. And boundaries are not walls, they are invitations to understand someone at a deeper level. There are many who would have taken her honesty as an opportunity to manipulate her, persuade her, or use it as a justification to push forward. But he saw that desire without respect is dangerous. Desire without respect can break trust, create guilt, and damage emotional security. But respect without desire can still build something meaningful. Respect can exist independently while desire cannot. Respect means saying your comfort matters. Respect means saying your pace is my pace. Respect means saying I won't move until you feel safe. Respect means saying your boundaries are not obstacles, they are expressions of who you are. And in that realization, he understood something powerful, that closeness without consent is not intimacy, it is intrusion. That passion without patience is immaturity. That touch without trust is empty. That love without respect is temporary. Respect is what transforms attraction into connection, desire into devotion, and moments into memories. It is the difference between someone who wants your body and someone who values your soul. When she shared her truth, he was forced to choose what kind of man he would be. The man who allows desire to guide him, or the man who lets respect lead him. And in that quiet moment, he recognized that being physically attracted to someone is easy, but respecting someone deeply is rare. Desire might draw two people together for a moment, but respect is what keeps them together for a lifetime. Emotional maturity is one of the silent pillars of every meaningful relationship. It isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, it doesn't demand attention. Instead, it reveals itself in the quiet ways a person reacts, responds, respects, and reflects. Emotional maturity is not determined by age, experience, or confidence. It is determined by responsibility. It is the ability to understand your emotions and honor someone else's at the same time. When she said, "I'm a virgin," what truly confronted him wasn't her innocence, it was his own emotional readiness. It wasn't her truth that shook him, it was the question that echoed inside him. Am I capable of handling the trust she just placed in me? Most people think maturity is about acting older or speaking wisely. But real emotional maturity shows itself in moments of pressure, moments of choice, moments when your feelings collide with someone else's vulnerability. It is measured by how well you regulate your desires, your impulses, and your reactions when someone reveals a part of themselves that requires gentleness. And in that moment, her vulnerability became his test. He felt himself break not into pieces, but into awareness. Awareness that stepping into intimacy with someone requires more than attraction. It requires clarity. It requires self-control. It requires understanding what the other person needs, not just what you want. Emotional maturity teaches you that closeness is not something to rush into, it is something to build. It teaches you that trust is delicate, and once damaged, it rarely returns in the same form. He realized that if he wasn't emotionally grounded, he could easily hurt her not out of intention, but out of unpreparedness. Emotional immaturity doesn't always come from bad intentions. Sometimes it comes from not knowing yourself well enough, from not understanding the consequences of your actions, from not recognizing how deeply intimacy affects someone emotionally, especially someone who enters that space with fear, hope, or expectation. Emotional maturity means looking beyond the moment. It means seeing the impact. It means asking, am I capable of holding this person's trust without dropping it? A mature heart understands that intimacy is not simply a physical act, it carries emotional memory. It can build someone or break someone. It can strengthen someone's confidence or destroy their sense of worth. It can be a moment they treasure for life or a moment they wish they could erase. Emotional maturity acknowledges this power and respects it. His breaking was not weakness, it was insight. Insight into who he was at that moment. Insight into the kind of partner he had the potential to be, or the kind he wasn't ready to become. Insight into how deeply this step could affect her emotionally, and how unprepared he felt to carry that weight. People wrongly assume that stepping back shows cowardice. But emotional maturity sometimes means pulling away from a moment you are not ready to honor. It means choosing patience over impulse. It means recognizing your limits and not allowing your desire or ego to overpower another person's emotional safety. He understood that if he moved forward without readiness, he could become a source of emotional confusion for her. She might interpret his hesitation as rejection, his desire as pressure, his silence as disinterest. Emotional maturity requires clarity, the clarity to communicate, to reassure, to respect the vulnerability placed in your hands. There are individuals who mistake confidence for maturity, but emotional maturity is not about being bold, it is about being responsible. It is not about knowing what you want, it is about understanding what someone else needs. It is not about proving strength, it is about offering stability. And stability is not something you pretend to have, it is something you develop within yourself. When he broke, it was because he recognized the emotional weight of intimacy. He realized that intimacy with her wasn't just about a physical moment. It was about entering a part of her life that she guarded, a part she didn't share easily, a part that mattered to her deeply. Emotional maturity demanded that he honor that significance, not exploit it. He understood that love requires more than affection. It requires discipline. It requires emotional awareness. It requires the capacity to protect someone's feelings even when your own feelings are loud. And in that moment, he noticed the gap within himself, the gap between desire and readiness, between attraction and responsibility, between enjoying a moment and understanding its consequences. Emotional maturity matters because it prevents careless damage. It matters because hearts are not toys. It matters because trust is fragile. It matters because vulnerability, once mishandled, rarely reopens. Her statement made him see himself clearly, the version of him that needed to grow, needed to understand, needed to develop the emotional tools required to truly care for someone at that level. Emotional maturity doesn't ask, "What do I want right now?" It asks, "What is the right thing for both of us in the long run?" And that question alone separates those who hurt others from those who protect them. Intimacy is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human relationships. Many people reduce it to touch, to closeness, to physical connection, but real intimacy begins long before bodies ever meet. It begins in the mind, in the heart, in the emotional spaces two people share. Physical intimacy is only one expression of closeness. Emotional intimacy is the foundation that gives the physical form meaning. When she said, "I'm a virgin," the weight of her words was not about the act itself. It was about what intimacy meant to her. It was about the depth behind the decision, the emotions tied to it, the values and fears intertwined with that part of her life. And in that moment, the question was not whether he desired her, it was whether he understood her. He broke before he touched her because he realized something profound. Touching someone's body means nothing if you cannot touch their heart with the same level of care. He felt the emotional responsibility rise above the physical possibility. Real intimacy asks for connection, not contact. It demands understanding, not urgency. It thrives on trust, not temptation. True intimacy is built in layers. It begins with honesty, being able to share parts of yourself you normally hide. It blossoms through communication, listening with the intention to understand. It grows through emotional safety, knowing that the other person will not use your vulnerability as a weapon. And only then does physical closeness become something meaningful rather than empty. Many relationships rush into physical intimacy because it feels easier. It gives the illusion of closeness without requiring emotional transparency. It creates a moment of unity without building the foundation that actually sustains a bond. Physical closeness can happen within seconds. Emotional intimacy takes time, patience, presence. For her, saying she was a virgin wasn't a declaration of innocence. It was a declaration of the emotional weight she placed on intimacy. She needed someone who understood that she wasn't giving away something physical. She was sharing a part of her journey, a part of her fear, a part of her expectations. She wasn't just protecting her body, she was protecting her heart. And for him, understanding this was the moment maturity stepped in. He realized that if he approached her physically without connecting with her emotionally, he would be stepping into a space he wasn't prepared to honor. Emotional intimacy demands a level of awareness that many overlook. It asks you to recognize that your partner's feelings, memories, and values are woven into their experience of closeness. It asks you to care about what intimacy represents to them, not just what it offers to you. Intimacy is the space where two souls meet without fear of being misunderstood. It is built when someone can say, "This is who I am," and the other person replies, "I see you, and I'm here." It is created when partners share their insecurities, dreams, past wounds, and hopes for the future. It is strengthened in the quiet moments, in deep conversations, in shared silence, in small gestures that say, "I value you." Physical intimacy without emotional connection is temporary. It fades quickly, leaves questions, and often creates confusion. But emotional intimacy transforms physical closeness into something that lasts, something meaningful, respectful, and memorable. He understood that intimacy is not proven in how close you get, but in how deeply you connect. You can be inches away from someone's body and miles away from their heart. You can touch someone physically, but never touch them emotionally. And you can love someone without feeling the need to rush into their physical space, because the connection you share transcends desire. Real intimacy means choosing to understand someone's emotional world before stepping into their physical one. It means learning their fears, respecting their pace, listening to their heart. It means seeing their boundaries not as obstacles, but as expressions of their inner truth. When she shared her truth, she invited him into the emotional part of intimacy first, the part that requires patience, empathy, and genuine care. He realized that if he moved too quickly, he would be stealing the emotional depth she needed. If he prioritized desire over understanding, he would be entering her world without the respect required to stay there. And he knew that intimacy without emotional connection would not only hurt her, it would leave him feeling empty as well. Intimacy is not about bodies touching. It is about souls meeting. It is the bond that forms when two people feel safe enough to be seen completely. It is the comfort that grows when you feel understood without having to explain every part of yourself. It is the trust that says, "You can hold this part of me, and I know you won't break it." And in recognizing this, he understood that physical closeness could wait, because emotional closeness was the true heart of connection. In a world that praises pursuit, speed, and boldness, stepping back is often misunderstood. People equate stepping back with fear, hesitation, or lack of desire. They assume that the one who pauses is the one who is uncertain, insecure, or unwilling. But the truth is far more complex and far more courageous. Sometimes, stepping back is not a sign of weakness. It is a display of the highest form of emotional strength. When she said, "I'm a virgin," what unfolded in that moment was not just a confession, it was a delicate revelation. It required courage from her to speak, and it required courage from him to truly listen. Many would rush past the emotional meaning behind those words, blinded by desire or pressure, but he felt something shift inside him. Not desire, not disappointment, not fear, but a deeper awareness that moving forward without readiness could cause more harm than good. Stepping back means acknowledging that the other person's emotional safety matters more than your immediate desires. It means recognizing that you are not entitled to closeness simply because attraction exists. It means understanding that intimacy is not a race, but a responsibility, and responsibility requires clarity. In that moment, he realized that he was standing at a crossroads, one path fueled by impulse, and the other guided by maturity, and he chose to step back. This choice is rarely celebrated, because the world often glorifies pursuit over patience. Many believe the bravest person is the one who pushes through discomfort, who rushes into closeness, who convinces or persuades. But bravery is not always loud. Sometimes bravery is the quiet ability to pause, to reflect, to protect someone even when no one would blame you for moving forward. He stepped back because he understood something important, that her vulnerability was not an invitation to proceed but a request for understanding. She was not telling him to stop, but she was revealing the emotional depth behind her boundaries. Her truth deserved respect, not pressure. It deserved patience, not persuasion, and stepping back was his way of honoring that truth. This is where true courage lies, in choosing restraint when desire is strong, in choosing respect when opportunity arises, in choosing to protect someone's heart even when no one else would know the difference. Stepping back does not mean losing interest. It does not mean running away. It does not mean rejecting someone. It means valuing the emotional weight of the moment more than the physical possibilities. It means recognizing that readiness is more important than romance, and that lasting connection requires patience, not urgency. He broke before he touched her not because he was weak, but because he recognized how easily he could hurt her without intending to. Emotional harm is not always caused by malice, sometimes it is caused by unpreparedness. And unpreparedness in intimacy can leave scars deeper than any physical wound. He understood that pushing forward without emotional clarity could lead to regret, confusion, or guilt for both of them. Stepping back is a decision made by those who see beyond the moment. It requires self-awareness, the ability to admit, I am not ready, or you deserve someone who can hold this moment with more stability than I can offer right now. It requires humility, the willingness to put someone else's emotional needs before your own desires. And it requires empathy, the capacity to understand how your actions might impact the other person long after the moment has passed. Many confuse stepping back with giving up, but there is a profound difference. Giving up is rooted in fear of commitment, fear of vulnerability, fear of responsibility. Stepping back is rooted in care for the other person's well-being, care for the connection you share, care for your own readiness to honor something delicate. Stepping back says, I value you too much to risk hurting you. It says, I respect the importance this holds for you. It says, I want to continue, but only when we both feel safe and comfortable. And that kind of courage is rare. Rare because it requires emotional discipline. Rare because it demands patience in a world that glorifies speed. Rare because it calls for maturity in moments where others would choose impulse. When he stepped back, he was showing her without words that her story mattered, that her pace mattered, that her emotional comfort mattered. And that intimacy, when shared, should never feel rushed, pressured, or taken for granted. Stepping back is not an act of rejection, it is an act of protection, not a sign of weakness, but a sign of wisdom, not a lack of desire, but a presence of respect. It is the decision to prioritize long-term emotional health over short-term satisfaction. It is the realization that the most meaningful moments are the ones built on trust, not urgency. And trust grows in the spaces where patience and understanding are allowed to breathe. In choosing to step back, he demonstrated the courage to honor something fragile, and courage, like that, is what transforms a moment of fear into a foundation of respect. Strength is often portrayed as dominance, the ability to take, to claim, to pursue without hesitation. Society teaches that confidence is measured by how bold you are, how quickly you move, how much you conquer. But true strength is far quieter, far deeper, far more meaningful. Real strength is not in possessing someone's body, it is in protecting their heart. When she said, I'm a virgin, the world might have seen a physical truth, but he saw an emotional one. Her words were not about inexperience, they were about meaning. They reflected the weight she placed on intimacy, the care with which she guarded her story, the values she held close. And in that moment, the strength required from him was not physical, not passionate, not dominant, it was emotional strength. The kind of strength that asks, can I be trusted with the parts of her that she does not reveal to anyone else? Can I carry this truth with gentleness? Can I protect her heart even if I can't have her body? These are the questions that define real strength, not what you can do, but what you choose not to do. Not how fast you move, but how carefully. Not how much you desire, but how much you respect. Touching someone's body is simple. Protecting their heart requires discipline, compassion, and maturity. He broke before he touched her because he realized that entering her physical world without being ready to protect her emotional world would be a betrayal not of her body, but of her trust. And trust, once broken, is harder to repair than any physical boundary. Real strength lies in self-control, in understanding that desire is not a command, it is a feeling, and feelings require guidance. Real strength lies in patience, the ability to wait, not because you are hesitant, but because you are honoring someone's comfort. Real strength lies in empathy, the ability to see beyond the moment and into the emotional consequences of your actions. There are many people who can touch. There are far fewer who can protect. There are many who can pursue. There are few who can pause. There are many who want physical closeness. There are few who understand emotional responsibility. He recognized that stepping into intimacy with her wasn't just about desire, it was about holding something fragile. Her heart, her trust, her expectations, her fear, and protecting those required strength that went far beyond physical attraction. Protecting someone's heart means understanding that intimacy leaves emotional footprints. It shapes the way a person sees themselves, the way they feel afterward, the way they remember the moment. It can empower or weaken. It can heal or wound. It can build someone or break them. And the strength to choose the higher path to safeguard feelings over fulfilling physical desires is what separates maturity from impulse. True strength says, I care about the version of you that will exist after this moment. I want you to feel safe with me, not pressured. I want your heart to stay intact, not confused or hurt. I want intimacy to feel like trust, not fear. Protecting someone's heart also means protecting their dignity, ensuring they never feel used, rushed, or devalued. It means being aware of their emotional pace and matching it instead of pushing it. It means recognizing that every person carries invisible wounds, memories, insecurities, and hopes that shape the way they approach closeness. For her, intimacy held significance. It wasn't something she wanted to rush or take lightly, and he understood that possessing her body without honoring that significance would be an act of emotional carelessness. Strength meant stepping into her world with sensitivity, not entitlement. It meant being aware of the weight behind her truth and choosing actions that respected it. Real strength is gentle. It does not push. It does not pressure. It does not demand. It chooses understanding over urgency, compassion over conquest. The world often teaches men that strength lies in taking the lead, winning affection, or proving desire. But the truest strength is shown in restraint, in choosing to hold back, not because the desire isn't there, but because the timing isn't right, because the emotional space isn't ready, because the heart you are holding needs protection, not passion. Protecting someone's heart means seeing them as a human being with emotions, not as an opportunity for closeness. It means recognizing their truth and responding not with instinct, but with intention. It means being strong enough to respect what matters most to them, even if it means slowing down or stepping aside. He realized that intimacy done without emotional readiness is not love, it is imbalance. It leaves behind confusion, emptiness, and emotional cracks. But intimacy built with patience, respect, and emotional strength becomes something meaningful, something safe, something memorable, something that honors both bodies and hearts. And so, his strength wasn't in touching her. It was in choosing not to. It was in recognizing that the heart behind her words mattered more than the moment in front of him. So as we stand here today reflecting on her story, a story that began with innocence, met with fear, and ultimately transformed into strength, let us remember this. The value of a person is never measured by their past, their purity, or their perceived perfection, but by their heart, their courage, and their humanity. She said, I'm a virgin. He broke before he touched her, and maybe that's the point we keep missing. Sometimes, What breaks a person is not the truth they hear, but the truth they hold inside. Her honesty exposed his insecurity. Her vulnerability revealed his lack of readiness. Her clarity illuminated his confusion. And yet, she walked away whole, not because the moment was easy, but because she chose to honor her worth even in the face of someone who didn't recognize it. Let this be the lesson we carry forward. We cannot control who is intimidated by our honesty. We cannot prevent who walks away when faced with our truth. But we can choose courage over silence, dignity over desperation, and authenticity over fear. To everyone listening, men, women, and anyone navigating the fragile spaces of trust and intimacy, remember this. The right person will never be overwhelmed by your truth. They will be grateful that you trusted them with it. And the wrong person, they were never meant to stay. So let us honor her story by honoring ourselves, by speaking boldly, loving wisely, and knowing that our worth doesn't shrink just because someone else wasn't strong enough to hold it. Thank you